So we met with Interclass on the 10th of January to discuss the claim. Des O'Neill, the MD from Interclass, was being Des O'Neill, in as much as very much defending his position and saying that he is going to apply for everything that he is contractually entitled to which we responded with, well, we're only going to give you what you're contractually entitled to. The long and the short of it was he insisted on a deadline of the 25th of January to have their response back to us reviewing it and getting into a secure position where we know on the financial side where we are. That didn't happen. So on the 2nd of February, we received further extension of time information, including this cause and effect program. The sum of it is they are effectively stating that they are entitled to 40 weeks and 4 days of extension of time. However, to mitigate costs and delays, they're only going to apply for 38 weeks and 4 days. Very briefly going through the headlines of that, they're effectively claiming a 2-week delay from signing of the contract. So according to their program, that should have happened on the 20th of July 2022, but it wasn't actually signed until the 1st of August. They're then saying that that has effectively delayed their possession of the site. My response to that is going to be, well, on the 10th of February 2022, you were given a letter of intent. So that gives you comfort that you are going to be awarded the contract. Furthermore, in March, we extended the limited liability of that letter of intent so they could place orders for subcontractors. So there's absolutely no reason why they couldn't have mobilised when they did. And they spent the following 6 months working with the design team to ensure we got everything in place to commence. The big extension of time is extension time number 1, which, as you may all know, I hope you do, we had issues with Western Power and getting meters relocated. So that was a big one. And the one thing that does frustrate me with this extension of time is it would appear that Interclass have done nothing to use best endeavours to mitigate that delay. So this is despite the fact that in March of 2022, I asked them to look at bringing forward the fit out of the toilets, studios 4 and 5 and the bar. They basically dismissed it, saying it would be out of sequence working and therefore not cost effective. I've got emails backing all of this up, so that's going to be the first thing that's going to go back to them. So with regard to extension of time number 1, what we have done is we have awarded, out of the 17 weeks that they're claiming for it, we've awarded 6 as an extension of time. On the basis that at that time, the program implications showed that there was a 6-week overrun on the program. And that, as far as I'm concerned, we're not going to change that because they haven't mitigated the delay. Extension of time number 2.
Phil, just to say,
a lot of you, sorry,
Phil, that 6 weeks you're talking about, that's already accounted for and is in the increased cost, and it's paid for effectively.
Yes. The next one is, well, the next extension of time, the notification came through in relation to the attenuation tank. The problems we experienced were, as we were starting to excavate, we found all the foundations of the previous structure which hadn't been grubbed up. In relation to the attenuation tank, it just so happened that they fell exactly where we were going to be putting the tank. So we went through a process of trying to identify where the foundations were and how we could overcome the problem by splitting the attenuation tank. So that was the sum total of the notification of delay. They then subsequently submitted an extension of time request for 9 weeks, of which we have certified 5.5, and those costs are also included within our current final account. There was a dispute, or is still a dispute, between us over the 3.5 weeks that they're outstanding. And to my mind, all the information that was required from Interclass to complete that work was provided by the design team. And my investigations into this claim so far this week have identified that the technical design by their subcontractors hadn't been completed. So therefore, we are going to stand by our 5.5 week extension of time on the basis that there's no further information that the design team could have provided, and it's all within their subcontract supply chain. Yes, David.
And what you're saying there is that, sorry, Clive, go on.
Was that a contractor's design for the tanks?
No, it wasn't. But what it was, the SDS, who were the subcontractor to Castle West, who the ground worker, were doing all the contractor design for the tanks. So Shire consulting the engineers would provided the volume of tank that was required, and then it was down to the technical designers to make it work.
Okay.
Yeah. So what the point you're making there is that the design was in our court because that was Rowbottom's, was it, originally? Or one of our direct contract Shires, they're directly employed by us, are they?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, so that's us. But SDS are employed by Interclass, and therefore if there's a delay, that's between them and their subcontractor.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So that's extension of time number 2. The programme was really muddied in as much as we had effectively 2 phases of work, and according to their cause and effect programme, in May 23, they proposed to switch to a 4-phase programme so that they could hand over areas early, which, if you remember, at the start of this conversation, I said that was something that I put forward to them in March 22, so sort of 14, 15 months earlier, which they didn't like. So it's really started to confuse the situation, primarily because they are now claiming that works that were completed in March, April have now had an impact on the revised programme because of because of reverting to a phased approach. So the battle we're having with them is, well, if those works were completed, how is it having an impact now, when surely your revised programme only picks up works that are due to be completed, not completed?
You lost me then. Sorry, I'm not very bright. So
okay,
can you go through that again?
When we changed to the 4-phase approach, where we've got phase 1 being the toilets, Studio 4-5 and the bar, phase 2 being the studio theatres, dressing rooms, phase 3 being changing places, disabled WC, etc., phase 4 being the courtyard infill. What they are trying to state is that works that were completed prior to that have had an impact on the 4-phase approach, and therefore have created, in looking at the rainwater pipes here, a 3-week delay. And to be honest with you, I've sat down with the design team today, the architect and the structural engineer. We've scratched our heads. We don't see how it has. If anything, we made it easier, because what they're claiming for the rainwater pipe is that we had an existing pipe that hadn't been catered for within the design. We ended up taking that out of the equation and just letting it discharge onto the new roof. But they're claiming that it's had a 3-week delay to them, and we can't work out why.
They're not saying that the stuff that was completed caused a delay because they had to undo it in some way, then?
No. What they're basically saying is, when they've reverted to the 4 phases, they're now saying, oh, that work that was completed 4 months ago is causing us a delay. And I honestly, it doesn't make any sense. You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Because if you've reprogrammed the work to allow so that you're programming only the works that need to be done, how could something that's already been finished cause an impact?
Okay.
So we've been through extension of time 3 with the design team today. The only thing that we could probably, well, no, there's 2 things, to be fair, that we can put a hand up to. Within the North Light structure over Studio 3, the tender design allowed for 2 cranked steel members to support the North Lights. However, when the architect were doing a review back in July, last year, they noticed that they needed a 3rd one. So one needed to be relocated and then another one brought in. So the steelwork hadn't gone up by that point, but it had been ordered. So effectively, we have got an extension of time for the ordering of the new steel and the installation of that steel. The relocation of the other member, as far as I'm concerned, can be shifted over on site drilled, bolted in, no problem at all. So I would say we're probably looking at 1, maybe 2 weeks on that maximum. But what I'm doing at the moment is I'm now reviewing this against their program to see when it would have been programmed in relation to when the information was issued.
Right, so you should be able to identify when they were told to change it, when they ordered it, and how long it took for it to come. But
yes.
But that might be a delay on the roof. But would that delay the whole timeline for it? Why did that cause them 2 weeks delay on the whole project?
It's because they had a crash deck underneath the roof and they couldn't remove that until they'd finished on the roof. And obviously what it did impact on is the roof coverings going on, the North Lights going in, and therefore so to make the roof watertight, it impacted on all of that. So there is a delay. We are trying to assess at the moment. We will need further information from Interclass on this, which will be asked within our response to their claim, because we need to understand exactly when that steel was ordered, because there is emails on file which basically show that on the 6th of June, Ravi, the architect, spotted the mistake, alerted Interclass to it, and then about a week or so later, or just over a week later, she's then chasing up Interclass to say, look, can you make sure you've captured this? And Andy has replied saying, yes, I hadn't forgotten. Well, yeah, it slipped my mind, but he had actually placed an order. So we can sort of try and tie that down quite neatly now to understand exactly what's going on.
So it could be just a week's delay because
it could be, yeah, absolutely.
In fact, it's certainly dependent on how long it took, isn't it? If they're claiming that as part of the week between, him forgetting and then placing it, that's not our fault. But the delay caused by the actual ordering process and the delivery process is something that we would be liable for. And but they were able to carry on everywhere else. So what does a week of delay cost? Should have established that right at the front, really.
A week of delay is around about £6,500 to £7,000.
Okay. Okay.
What else? I mean, there's all sorts that they're claiming throughout this. There's another one that we've put our hands up, which they're claiming for a 3-week delay on, which is something of nothing. Well, there's a lot of steel work, of which there's only one item that we can obviously put a hand up to, and that was because we changed the level of the ground beams at the ramp, and what that meant is that there was a one column that needed to be adjusted by 75 mil lower, and they had to get some more steel in to do that. But we're talking next to nothing for that, really. It's almost a case of getting a couple of base plates and bolting it all together to fill the gap. So so there's something and nothing there. The other big one that we have got is there was an issue with regard to the roof. The architect designed the structure to the roof to provide the 1 degree fall. Shires didn't issue any sections through the roof because it's down to subcontractor design. They just basically issued a plan for the roof, and what's happened is that they've put the steel members in at 0 degrees, so level, and in order to create the fall that's required, there's some timber furrings that are required. Now they are claiming a 3-week delay as a result of that. I'm reviewing that because on the basis that the steelwork didn't, the structural engineer did not provide a section, they should have used the architect's drawings to provide the detail as to how they were creating the fall. And they didn't. So the fabricator, the fabrication drawings came through and was signed off by both architect and structural engineer. So whilst if they hadn't have been sent through to the architects and structural engineer for signing off and they just carried on, then that's a claim that we can just straight throw back at them and say, no, that's a subcontractor design issue, that's your problem. However, because they signed the drawings off, they missed the fact that it hadn't been put into the 1 degree fall. So I think that is an area that we may have to pick up as a result. The other thing,
and that will be 3 weeks.
Now claiming, sorry,
what
David,
would that be? Do you think? What do you estimate that to be?
Well, they're claiming 3 weeks, but again, that's another thing that I'm looking through at the moment. I've effectively been through in detail everything, and it's only today that I've been looking at extension of time 3. So I'm picking that. Well, I'm going through that now. They're claiming 3 weeks. I can't see how it can be 3 weeks. It's just some timber that they need to order. So that could be a week, maybe 2 at a push, but I'm certainly going to be looking more towards a week for that one.
Okay.
What they haven't claimed before, which is only since they've done the delay analysis program, is that now the works have reached a second Christmas period. Sorry, Angela.
Sorry, Phil. In terms of all these weeks that they're claiming, that seems to be sort of doubling up on some of these weeks. I mean, are they all independent linear weeks, or are they, 3 weeks on delay on that bit?
Yeah, they are. Some of them are, some of them aren't. So when you look at the program, you can see exactly where they're claiming the weeks, etc. The big thing for me with all this is the fact that they are not using best endeavours to minimise the delay.
Yeah,
and that's my big concern. And
they kind of seem to be adding them all in retrospect when the time's already gone, because they didn't make best use of it.
This has been my big when we first had extension of time 3 come through, they were basically claiming delays for works that had been completed 5.5 months prior to the delay notification coming through, and I went straight back to them and said, sorry guys, the contract is very clear that you have to notify me as the contract administrator of delay as soon as it becomes reasonably apparent. So why are you now claiming for something that was finished 5.5 months ago? And it's only since then that they've then said, well, it's because when we changed to a phase, the 4 phases, we've identified that it's impacted on progress. But it's a weak argument as far as I'm concerned. Very weak.
Yeah.
So yeah, what they have now said is because the works have now bridged a second Christmas period, they've got a week and a half or a week or so downtime for the Christmas break. So how
But they'd have that Christmas break, whatever contract they were on. It's not,
They
that's
would,
not
but-
related to our contract.
it is, because effectively we'd have to pay for the staff over that Christmas period. It's frustrating. I know, and actually, I believe that if they'd have used their best endeavours right from the outset, they could have been finished before Christmas last year.
Yeah.
So I mean, one of the things I have looked at amongst all of the extension of time is I've looked at the durations that they've included within the original programme and the durations that they are now reporting or working to. And I'll give you a couple of examples. I'd like to see Clive's face when I mention this. So, for example, in the original two-phase programme, first fix M&E across all phases of work was 30 days, first fix M&E. So when we then revert to a four-phase programme, so bearing in mind the scope of work hasn't changed, we're just doing it in a different order, 75 days.
That's ridiculous.
The best one is plasterboard, skim and partitions. The original two-phase programme was 27 days. The four-phase programme is 100.
I don't get how
So what
to do.
my response to them is going to be, I've reviewed this is what I found, and actually your programme right from the outset was always in delay. You were never going to achieve that programme.
No.
You were never going to achieve it.
Yeah.
Because I've picked on four areas of work, and I found a 34-day prolongation for which there's no mechanism for them to recover. 34 weeks out of the 38 that they're claiming.
Which is nothing to do with us delaying anything or.
Correct.
I mean, yeah.
Correct.
And that's what they're trying to make up then, isn't it? They're trying to make up for their own
Incompetence.
mistakes, aren't they? Their own incompetent planning. Yeah.
Yes. And I think, David, going on our conversation earlier with regard to their reporting of the final account, this is I think is the crux of the problem, is that just for everybody's benefit, over the course of between April and sort of September last year, every month we get a valuation from them for payment. Within that valuation, they are identifying what their projected final account is. So for every month between April and September, Debbie was telling them that your final account is incorrect because you've double counted a provisional sum of £245,000 for inflation, and you've also got the contract sum incorrect by £54,000. So we were on a monthly basis telling them that they need to adjust their final account by just under £300,000. Effectively, what they're claiming now, or the difference between us, is about just under £300,000. So they've gone through the pain and expense of doing this critical delay analysis to help fight their case.
Yeah.
But actually what it's done is it's given me a few bullets to fire back.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So what I'm now trying to do is, sorry, Carol.
You've got an evidence base there, haven't you, that
Yes.
you can show them. So
Yes. And that's before I even start to talk to them about why didn't you start effectively the phase one works when we were trying to sort the meters out, because that would have been an ideal opportunity to get in. That whole area was free for them to come in and do. They could have had all of that complete. They could have then gone straight on to phase two, and I believe they could have been finished by Christmas last year as a result, but they didn't.
I think the fairies had visited by then as well, if I remember.
I'm not going to comment on that, David.
Exactly. So I mean, this is crazy. I mean, if you can show that they should have finished before Christmas, then we're not liable for their Christmas, are we?
That's yeah. I mean, it is a point that I'm going to resist paying that, because I do believe that they should have been finished. I've asked for their weekly labour records for the last 6 months, because I'm not sure what they've done to mitigate the delay. Whenever I've been on site, there doesn't seem to be the number of men that I would expect for a project that's significantly in delay.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't feel right. I mean, being truthful, if they'd have come to me and said, we're going to finish in January, and I would have said, that's probably about right. But if they'd have done some more, a bit more just to help the cause, they could have been finished by Christmas.
Yeah.
Okay. What else are they asking for? Is that it?
That's more or less it. You'd be pleased to know their final account has come down a little bit.
What, 50p?
It's 3.28 million now. However,
And you think it should be, just so we got that figure, you think it could be as low as 3.05, is that right?
that's our worst case.
That's our best
3.07.
case.
3.07. Our worst case is 3.07. Our best case is less than £3 million.
Right. Okay.
So one of the things that they are claiming within the provisional sum for inflation is £125,000 out of the 260,000 they're claiming. £125,000 for the mechanical and electrical. Now, they've not been able to substantiate that, so I'm basically instructed Debbie, take it out, because we made it very, very clear they had to fully substantiate any claim for inflation. They haven't been able to do it with that one. So I've said take it out. And what's also helping my argument now is the fact that because they've cited the 2-week delay for signing of the contract, it's flushed out the fact that back in March 22, we gave them a letter of intent which said that they could spend £100,000 on placing the mechanical order. They didn't place that order until the 31st of August 2022. So 6 months. So if costs have gone up 5% in that period, that's your baby. It's not, we're not having it, because you were.
That's exactly why, wasn't it? That we did that with that
Correct.
letter. I remember that.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
I mean, it sounds like legally they haven't got a leg to stand on, have they? Apart from a couple of things you've mentioned where, okay, that could be liable for a week there, or it sounds like, well, they're clearly making up to this to sort of secure their own deficit, aren't they? But I would think if we've got evidence that you're saying legally, they just want to have a case, will they?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of where is this going to go? I'm going to finish my assessment. What I will do is then sit down with yourselves and Coventry City Council, along with EXE, who are the fund monitors. I'm speaking to Matt Brown almost on a daily basis, or whenever I can get hold of him, and sort of giving him an update as to where we are, or where I am. Once I've got that in place, and got effectively said, look, this is what I recommend, and you say yes, go for it, I will then issue this to Interclass. I'm being chased. I mean, bearing in mind this information was received on Friday last week. I was chased on Tuesday for an update. For a response to the delay. To which I said, well, if you've given us 2.5 days to respond on something that's taken you 4 to 5 weeks to pull together, I think that's a bit unreasonable. So we've said that they're likely to get a response next week. Didn't say when, but next week is what I'm aiming for.
Well, we'll talk about that. Phil, what about, because we've talked about this, what about our claim for the delays that they have caused, and therefore have what's it called, liquidated damages that we can claim from them?
What will happen there is, when we've finished this toing and froing on the extension of time, that will effectively set what is the contractual completion date. So every phase along the way, we've issued a certificate of non-completion when they haven't achieved the date. So now what we can do on phases 1 and 2, my next exercise is going to be saying, right, okay, you were 2 weeks late on this, 1 week or whatever it was, and at a rate of X, that builds up a claim for liquidated damages.
And it's about £3.5 a week for us, isn't it? They get more than us.
It depends on which phase. I can't remember how we split it up in the end. There were different values. So what the big thing for me is going to be, right, when we've got the final completion date agreed in terms of what we are willing to certify to, that will then flush out what the liquidated damages are likely to be. And at the moment, if I'm not playing hardball with them, I think we could probably get to sort of mid-end January as a completion date, a legal contractual completion date, which would then mean that they've got 2 months of liquidated damages. However, if we do go hardball with them and that brings it into December, that you're talking 3 months then of liquidated damages. But what we would need to do is to finish this exercise, to get an agreement on the extensions of time. That will then trigger what's happening going forward. Interestingly, they have put a note on their delay program for phases 1, 2, and 3, which basically says that due to the mutual agreement not to levy liquidated damages on these phases, and I've got their program in AO on the wall and I'm marking it up. First thing I've done is I've put a ring around that and said, we haven't agreed that. We have never said that you are not prepared, you will not levy liquidated damages against them.
And of course, it's what they have actually done, Phil, by digging back and digging so deep and throwing it all at you, is they have uncovered for you these things that actually work in our favour, which is crazy.
Yeah. I don't think they've
we
really
should thank
thought it through.
No, I don't think they have. Okay. Anything else on what they're saying and what you think about it? Because
if you stop recording, I'll tell you what I really think about it.
Well, I will do, because that's the detail I want. And then we need to talk about your ideas for strategy. So let me stop recording. There you go.